future of digital banking. Can DeFi banks restructure the financial world? From mortgages to bank loans, what will the future look like? Moderated by Gordon Einstein, Emerging Technology Association, with Tin Nanda, Levercode, Oliver von Wolf, Iconic Holding, Hadi Malayeb, CEO, Agora Group, and Dave Police, ZBX.
Do I say good morning or good afternoon? So we're kind of creeping up on the afternoon. Anyways, everyone, very excited to be back here at a live in-person event. Before we even start our panel, let's do a round of applause for each other and for AIBC. So give it up. I like it. It's a high energy room, and we're going to take the energy even higher. And I'm very happy to be here hosting an esteemed panel on the future of digital banking. I think before we get into the rough and tumble of the topic, we're going to have each one of our panelists introduce themselves. I'm Gordon Einstein, crypto attorney. That's my fast version. We'll do the slightly extended version for our panelists. I like to say, you know, there's sort of like Wolverine has the origin tale. Give us, of course, who you are, but tell us just like in a minute what you're up to and how you got into crypto. So please, we'll start with you.
Hi, hello. I'm Oliver. I'm since 2019 a group CFO and equity partner by Iconic Holding in Germany, managing director of Iconic Funds. It's a joint venture between Iconic and Cryptology. And since this year, managing director as well here in Dubai of our legal entity. I have a couple years banking experience of the old banking, worked for different institutions as well for Saving Bank Foundation in Germany, who are trying to develop micro banks around the world. And this has quite a lot to do with digital banking as well. And I'm very happy to stay today here. And before 2019, I was not connected anyhow to crypto, blockchain, or anything like this.
So you're an innocent newbie. No,
yeah.
hardly. Thank you so much. David.
I come from a traditional financial background for like about 18 years. I've been in crypto since 2013, since the first 2013 San Jose conference. I'm not a crypto maximalist at all. I believe in the balance between the financial world and the crypto world, hence my position here today, because we're working with various governments around the world, including some contentious ones as well.
Contentious governments?
People in the east side of the world, you know, which the West gives us some issues with when we work with sometimes. So we consult governments, we work with banks around the world as well. We have some interesting projects that we're going to speak to during the panel as well. And it's very interesting how the world is going with regards to the regulation side. And we're happy to be consulting, you know, governments how to regulate the industry or how to find a compromise as well and how to use technology to that advantage.
Amazing. Hadi. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. My name is Hadi. I'm the CEO of Agora Group. Our group specializes in helping companies raise fund through meeting local investors. We also help international companies expand their presence in the region. Been involved in crypto since 2018. We do a lot of work in blockchain specifically. And we've been able to help a lot of companies raise funds from local and international investors.
Great guy. Nadine, pleasure.
Hello everyone, I'm Nathan. Is this working? Is it working?
Not really.
Can everyone hear me?
Better.
Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Nathan. This seems better. Yeah. I'm mainly into private international law, and I'm giving my clients legal support in around 20 countries, mostly international contracts and negotiation, international corporate structuring, international tax planning, and things like that. On the side, I'm on the supervisory board, advisory board, executive board of some international organizations and international companies. I'm also a global ambassador for Government Blockchain Association of USA. How I came into crypto, a close friend of mine had launched several crypto-based companies and projects, which are doing pretty well. And he gave me a task of studying different countries' crypto laws. So back in 2017-18, we conducted a research of around 100 countries' crypto laws at that time. Since then, I've been involved in the crypto space. Thank you for listening.
Amazing. Okay, so I crowdsourced the questions for this panel, so I didn't need to make them up. So thank you to everyone who provided questions. I'm going to take one from Hadi, which is, what is the future, or what is the state of play of digital banking in the MENA region right now? And why don't we lead off with you, and then we'll have others kind of comment.
Okay, sure. So I think the latest statistics that I was able to find were before the pandemic. So I'm pretty sure that after the pandemic, things have changed in terms of adoption. But right now, in the GCC region, specifically, we have around 30% of GCC nationals who are subscribed to online banking or digital banking, and only 18% of that are actually active users, which means that there is huge opportunity for digital banking adoption. And this opportunity is driven by a very young population here who is extremely internet friendly. It's also driven by lack of service or a perceived lack of service from traditional banks. And there's a huge opportunity to tap into the unbankable proportion of the population, not necessarily in the GCC because that portion is not very large, but in the MENA region as a whole, there's a huge opportunity over there.
Interesting. And anyone else want to comment about the state of play of digital banking, either in this region or your own region, as applicable? Please.
I've been meeting some bankers in this region, met the vice president of Emirates NBD, and then CEO of another local bank which has branches in UAE and Bahrain. Massive action is being taken, and digitalization is very aggressive in this region, core banking. There are definitely many concerns, but be as they may, the bankers are 100% aware that digitalization of banking services is the future in this region. Back home in Estonia, our ID systems, we have the most powerful ID system of the world, I can safely say. Our ID systems are linked to our banks as well. So I can use my ID to bank, transfer money, open a new bank account just using my ID. Everything is digital there. Thank you.
Interesting. So I'm going to ask a question that none of you knew I was going to ask, which is, since the panel is the future of digital banking, let's try to further envision that future and think of what's the definition of success, as in 2030 or 2035, where will we be if digital banking gets to where it can be? Sort of an open-ended question, but just kind of roll with it. And Oliver, can I start with you?
Yes, of course. I also would like to come back to the previous speakers here. I would like to structure this a bit more. Because what does mean digital banking, future digital banking at all? For me, it's a kind of evolution of banking. What means evolution for the UAE? It means transferring of conservative channels, what we had so far, like branches, ATM machines. Transferring of media, social, kind of cloud software solutions for the banking. And the biggest part for me, and this is also, I think, why we are all here today, is the transferring of of technology innovation. What does this mean? It means artificial intelligence. It means RPA systems. It means EOT systems.
Actually, let me pause you 1 second, because you mentioned something about this before.
Yes.
How do you see AI influencing the future of banking? Like, where exactly is the intersection?
Yeah, I would like to come back, going one step back, because I think from economic perspective, it's very important to understand where the UAE are staying today. If I look to the bank market here in the UAE, or especially in Dubai, we have around 200 banks. Yeah, all of these banks are, in comparison to Europe banks, or American banks, or even to startup banks, not really digital at all. It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of running around, and this just hits the reality. So meaning to transform these banks in the future means to give them the possibility to create innovation and to develop. So, and this I think is the future of Dubai as a banking place. Yeah, it's not to gather as much money as possible, not to get as much companies here inside. No, we need an environment in Dubai to create innovation. And innovation means, as I said, these 3 pieces. And banks have to follow it. Banks are created over the last, I mean, we're trying to make, our iPhones are 21st century. Our logistic is 20th century. And the banking system is like 17th century. So we have to change this. Banking must get much more innovative, much more straightforward, much more open, communicative. It's not anymore a closed environment for some people who are controlling the system. And I think here for the UAE it would be very important to integrate markets which are at the moment not integrated in the financial system at all. Africa, parts of Asia, even parts of the region of the GCC. We have a lot of very good economics places in the world which are not included in our environment, our financial environment. And if I think about digital banking in the future, then for me also the next question is how people which are at the moment outside of this financial system, we can bring back to include it. Because these are the future customers. They need our solutions. In Europe, US, they don't need digital banking really, because they're sitting on the high positions, high levels, and waiting what's coming. And they have enough money to buy it. But if I want to create a digital and innovative banking place, then I have to go different ways.
Interesting. David, please.
You asked a question, like, where do we see it in 20 years' time, 15 years' time? And I think in order to know where we need to go, we need to know what the problem is. And I think one of the biggest problems is fragmentation. So we deal with many clients in Africa or governments in Africa. We deal with the Chinese government and Brazil. So let me be very specific. For example, Brazil, we deal with a lot of business with cash, actual cash in the street. So we have systems how to collect that cash in a legal way that we can do KYC due diligence. While in our stronghold, which is China, and there's a lot of P2P payments. With WeChat Pay, Alipay, we put money through the merchant system. So what I do in Brazil doesn't apply maybe to what I do in China. So there's going to be various different systems that we have to do in different countries that one doesn't apply to the other. Regulatory requirements are probably going to be one of the worst hurdles that we have to deal with, because also the regulatory requirements in the US are going to be different than the regulatory requirements in China for various reasons. But I think going forward, we can use the blockchain.
Actually, let me pause you. Do you think that's necessarily true, or it seems like we're sort of coalescing on global standards when it comes to finance and banking? I mean, how do you mean exactly?
So the way we deal with European customers and the regulatory requirements that we need to abide by in Europe is quite different than what regulatory requirements we need to abide in other countries that are not so regulated. So for example, let's say the easiest example I can give is, for example, gaming in Germany. They introduce a new regulation. So obviously within your firm, you need to put that regulatory requirements even when you do onboarding, KYC, and due diligence. And these are regulations that can come at any point in time. So what can we actually do about it? We're trying to do onboarding services where we do AI or machine learning or a mixture of the both. So we can do onboarding, which is much quicker. We can also put your data on the blockchain, so you are onboarded once with a verified company. So then you use that KYC data with, say, Bank of America. Then you come to Europe. And you use that same KYC with Banco Valletta in Malta, which is verified KYC data. And right now, as you know, it takes ages to open a corporate bank account. And then you go to the next bank, they request the same documents, and probably you have to do them again because they're 6 months old. So when you use AI and blockchain for example, just the simple thing of opening a bank account, that is probably one of the biggest hurdles and one of the best things that we can contribute to the future of digital banking. Get your KYC, your onboarding on chain, and then you can passport it anywhere around the world. And you just let technology deal with trust. So you don't need a third party, which could be different third party in Africa than the third party in Europe. So the fragmentation going forward is going to be less and less. And that is probably the biggest hurdle for banking.
Interesting. Hadi, so question to you. Of course, future digital banking, what does it actually look like? But I want you to drill in, if you can, on whether you consider fintech and DeFi driving that future or disrupting that future, and maybe spin that in a little bit.
We work a lot in the disruptive technologies in many verticals. One of them is financial services. And there has to be a point where large banks start seeing fintech as collaborators as opposed to disruptors and competitors. And I think this is coming very soon. There's a lot of desire from the banking section to partner up with the latest fintech and DeFi innovations. However, I mean, going into banking in the future, and I don't think the technology is the hurdle. I mean, the technology right now is way ahead of legislation. As a very, very small example, for us, when we sell a sponsorship for one of our events, if a client is based in the US and wants to pay for the sponsorship fees, if they pay in Ethereum or in Ether or in Bitcoin or any stable coins, the payment is spontaneous. We receive the confirmation right on the spot. There are no hurdles. If they decide to pay by wire transfer, sometimes it takes up to a month to receive the money, and that is a huge hurdle. That's from one side. The other side is the taxation aspect of it. In the UAE, the government introduced a 5% VAT tax on services, and it's very hard for us to do proper accounting because we're receiving part of our money in digital currencies, and then we have to transfer that into our accounts. And then how do you explain to the government that this is the mechanism that is going on right now, and I still want to pay my 5%? So I think the legislation is really where the hurdles are. And I think the UAE is one of the most progressive countries in the world in adopting new regulations to catch up with the times. But this has to be done on a much more aggressive and much more international scale.
Fair enough. Now, I think we're running down the clock, but final last word on the topic.
I'll add to what Hadi said. The ground reality is that the world of technology is moving close to quantum speeds, and the regulation is really slow in catching up. So sometimes there are hurdles which the regulation itself does not exhibit, but the lack of regulation does. So when it comes to banking, the banking sector is very cautious because of the regulatory controls it has to go through. And if the regulation is not clear, the compliance teams, the AML teams, they don't let things happen which could have easily happened. But having said that, things are still moving ahead, so the future does seem brighter.
So just a final word. I think the takeaway I'm getting from this panel is that the technologies driving progress are fantastic, but we really need a regulatory scheme that enables this progress to take place for it to be solid and produce results. It's an interesting spin. I think we're actually out of time, so I want to thank our panel. Let's give a big round of applause. This is where you all clap. Thank you. Well done. All right, everyone. Thank you.